Welcome to Aquarian Diary, where we discuss issues around the emerging age of Aquarius. I'm your host, John Irving. Thank you for joining me. Greetings all, it is April 16th, 2022. I'm just coming on to do a quick update to let you know what's going on because it's been a while since I've posted anything. There's been a few things going on for me personally. I had several planets transiting my 12th house, and that's always a time when your energy is more internalized, and it's really the kind of time to recharge your batteries, to process what's gone on in the past 12 months or so. And you don't typically feel like being very expressive or social during that period, which is, for most people, it's roughly about 30 days if we're talking about the sun. But it depends on, what house system you use. In my case, it's longer than that. Also, I have, of course, been staying abreast of everything that's happening in the world, in particular Ukraine and so forth, and I am aware of what's happening there generally. I can't personally spend a lot of time getting into a lot of the really disgusting, gross details about the barbarism that's been taking place there because I just find it too upsetting and it makes me angry, which is completely justifiable, I think. So I have an awareness of what's happening from a high perspective, but I'm not one of those people who would, stop and look at a car crash. I don't need to know all the gory details. I just need to know what's generally happening, and that's what I've been doing. Now, that whole situation, as I have expressed before, I find completely maddening and infuriating because it is incredibly moronic and stupid that something like this could even occur in this day and age, because it all seems so pointless. I mean, if you're a Russian person right now, and even if you don't support what Putin is doing, imagine what it must feel like for those people who are aware of what's going on and are opposed to it. What's been happening is so barbaric that Russia is, how will it recover from this? Because people are so horrified by what's going on there. It's very hard to imagine how, what the future holds for Russia as a country. Another thing that happened recently on the 12th of April was the Neptune and Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, which I did a whole episode about. And that for me was very enlightening and sort of in a surprising way. For me, it dealt with how I relate to other people. I'm one of those people who are fiercely loyal to friends and people that I've had relationships with in the past and so forth. Even many of my exes, I still have maintained friendships with, and we've continued to communicate. I have this deep sense of caring for a lot of people who I have known. And sometimes it's hard for me to let go of those people because like I said, I'm so fiercely loyal. And so what came up for me was how this attachment to these people was holding me back. Now, it was coming from a place in me of genuine concern and caring and affection for these people. But that was a burden on me, and I didn't really fully appreciate or understand how much of a burden it was for me to continue to care for people right around the time when Jupiter and Neptune conjuncted, where I just realized I can't care anymore. I have to let go of not just one person in particular, but a bunch. I just have to let that go. Like that in a sense, I have to stop feeling sort of a sense of responsibility for other people. And it came up for me very strongly. And so it was a release, and it was very enlightening in that regard. And of course, it was still sad and poignant because, I genuinely and sincerely care for people. And so it was hard to do that, but I had to do it. There have been times when friends went through a crisis of some sort or other, and I would be the last person there, no matter what they were going through. I would stand by them until I was no longer needed. I think that we often probably reincarnate simply because of our love and devotion for certain beings or people. And, because that's what you do. It's unconditional love, right? And yet, every once in a while, in a lifetime, Saturn will make particular aspects in your chart, and it'll even force you to clean house with respect to that as well. And it's not like these people are going to cease to exist or cease to evolve if you're not there for them. But I think we just have such a strong heart connection with certain other people. It's very difficult to let go of that, but that is sometimes what we need to do so that we can move on and so that they can move on as well. And those bonds may go back for many lifetimes. And yet, at some point, because people are simply an expression or a projection of the source of all things, and often they are an imperfect or limited expression of that. So it can be a very hard thing to let go of those kinds of bonds. And so for me, because I'm so fiercely loyal and dedicated to people, it's especially hard for me to do that, to let go of those kinds of connections. Now that experience fits in perfectly with how I described that transit of Jupiter conjuncting Neptune in Pisces. And that was a big deal for me because, this goes back through my whole life of, having this caring for people, even sometimes when people screw you over or do shitty things to you or are just shitty in general, there's part of you that still is concerned for them and cares for them, sort of almost like you would for children. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, but, with your children, you love them no matter what, right? Well, I kind of have that energy for these people who I've connected with. And so it's very hard to let go of that, but sometimes we need to. And that's what this experience was about. And I can't really, very difficult for me to describe how significant that experience was because I felt that it was a very significant shift in me. And so this, of course, occurred while at the same time as all these planets were transiting my 12th house and that energy, that's how it shows up because the 12th house is endings, which prepare you for new beginnings when planets move across your ascendant and into the first house. So very important. It'd be interesting to hear what, if any, experiences other people had during this period of around April 12th where Jupiter conjuncted Neptune. If you want to share those in the comments. There's also, this general vibe lately has been really kind of down in a lot of ways I've found, and maybe that's true for you too. This whole situation in Ukraine is just so horrible. And there are a lot of changes going on in the world. In fact, today I was thinking about how the light shows the darkness. When you shine the light, you see the darkness, you see the shadows. And so all of these shadows are coming to the surface in the world and in humanity and have been increasingly, I would say, especially since, say, for example, when Trump got elected is when it really started to ramp up. And it's continued. And so, yes, there's more light there now coming in, but the darkness is becoming increasingly evident in every regard. Like all this stuff is really in our faces right now. And for those of us who are empathic, and I presume that includes many of the people listening to this is very difficult. Like I have spent a lot of time going like, what the hell is the point of all this? Why is this even happening? It's so idiotic and ridiculous. Like all this stuff, everything from vast income disparity to all this suffering that's going on, and the people in Ukraine. Like, what is the point of it? Why did we even bother to come here? Like, what purpose does suffering serve? And a lot of people would argue that, oh, well, it makes us stronger, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, no, seriously, think about it. What is the friggin' point of suffering? Why do we need to have this experience? How does it serve us? Some have even suggested that, what's happening in Ukraine is supposed to happen to show humanity, you know, what we don't want or how bad things are. And I'm like, well, war's been going on for thousands of years. If that's the case, it hasn't worked very well. Why would it suddenly start working now? I mean, clearly there's a lot of darkness within humanity, or none of this shit would be happening. It just wouldn't materialize here. And then so for people like me, as I've expressed before, and I presume it's true for you too, if you're listening to this, there's part of you going like, what the hell am I doing here? What is this is so screwed up. It's so dumb. It's like, don't kid yourself. There's no rational justification for all this kind of idiocy and nonsense and savagery. Like, it's just completely pointless, except, if you're an egocentric, narcissistic, power hungry, materialist, vile and violent, individual or mindset. It makes sense on that one level. And yet, those typically are the people who are dictating the show. Those people, because of their proclivities, tend to rise to positions of power and authority and influence and wealth. And that has to be changed. And I've talked about that before too. And the episode I did, Time to Decide, it's not a joke. We just have to decide that we don't want to do this bullshit anymore, because it's not even rational. Like, there is no defense for it intellectually, spiritually, on any level. It's just dumb. Like, why? It doesn't even ultimately benefit the people at the top, because they're typically really messed up people with messed up lives. And, when they depart, they probably go like, oh my God, what the hell did I just do? So, we just have to decide we don't want to do that anymore. So yeah, I've found the past while, it's very dark energies that are out there now. There's no excuse for most of the complete idiocy that we're experiencing. We just have to decide that we don't want to do that anymore and stop giving power to these complete infantile lunatics and savages who would do these kinds of things. And even, I would say, on a material level, those who profit from the suffering of others or take advantage of others to the point where it causes them serious harm. And some people in positions of power or with great wealth do that to millions of people. Why do we let that happen? It makes absolutely no sense to me. It's the kind of thing that just makes you want to smash your head on the desk. And yet, I think some of us, if you're like me, you just feel like you're just witnessing this and there's not really that much you can do about it other than try and dispel it energetically and so forth. It's kind of like we're here, watching a bunch of toddlers smash each other. Anyway, it drives me nuts. Also, one of the recent lunar events was very precisely aligned with my natal chart. Since then, like, huge things started shifting that, circumstantially, that are altering like my whole path in life in many ways. And so I have to finish something up here now in like record time. I have no idea how I'm going to get it all done in the next couple weeks. I've got some other very powerful transits coming up soon. They're already starting to kick in. Whoa, strong chills here. I am going to be somehow in a completely different situation. And I've also been guided to do something which I'm not prepared to talk about yet, but I will when the time comes. That it seems a bit odd to me, but I'm following my guidance on that. And I'm following through. And I'm hoping I'll be able to be more present here doing this on a more regular basis when I can dig into some more subjects. I've got a huge list of things I want to talk about. Because of work and other things, I haven't had time. I also had COVID this winter. And although the COVID itself, the symptoms weren't like really severe because I'm vaccinated, fully vaxxed. Um, but I did have lingering kind of sort of long COVID-ish kind of symptoms. And my energy level was like really low at times. I was just tired all the time, brain fog. I just ended up sleeping a lot. I went through a period of a few weeks where had the craziest sleep patterns. Like sometimes I would just be up all night, unable to sleep, and then I would sleep the whole day, and it would vary from day. It was just crazy. It was nuts. I really only started to regain my energy in the past couple weeks, to be honest with you. Mars is just going into Pisces now. That's going to be like really weird with what's going on in Ukraine and everything. I have no idea how that's going to play out. There's a lot of stuff shifting. And so the next couple weeks are going to be crazy for me, next 2 or 3 weeks. And so I appreciate your patience and support and all your comments and feedback. We're going through such major changes right now. We're kind of like in that, the dust is kicked up and hasn't settled, that it's really hard to see how things progress and how we, where we're going. It's funny. Today, actually, I was reading an article on The Conversation, which is a site where the authors are primarily academics. And in the comments of this particular article, I noticed several people, referring to the potential of civil war in the United States still. And this was just today, published in that last day or two. And of course, I did that video about the USA Pluto return, civil war or transformation. I thought that is interesting. So, on some level, that's still in the zeitgeist. I think people have concerns about what happens in November and some of the policies of the Republicans in various states with respect to things like abortion and these very deeply polarizing, illiberal, and regressive policies, many of which are so irrational and out of step that you can't help but think that they are simply intended to provoke a response from more liberal minded people. And, these are extremely provocative and, own the libs. So they are intended to piss people off. And, how far can you go before you provoke a significant reaction? The Democrats or somebody has to draw a line somewhere, don't they? If that doesn't happen, my fear is that it'll be too late, and then you'll have full-blown authoritarianism or fascism. And nobody denies that those words are being used inappropriately or out of context anymore. I mean, in France right now, Marine Le Pen could be elected, and that would have very profound consequences for the world and for Europe. Even if it's close, that's quite alarming. The main thing I wanted to do was just come on and give you a quick heads up where I'm at, so, because it's been a while. Anyway, thanks for everything, and we'll talk to you soon.